Hello, test subjects. Welcome back to the Skiphaps Play channel. Today we're going to talk about the plot of the Outlast Trials. Red Barrels, as a developer, they've decided to change the concept of the game Outlast, which was a revolutionary horror game in its time, from a single-player experience to a more focused multiplayer game, though you can still play it solo. The game, titled The Outlast Trials, was released on May 19, 2023 for PC and is currently in the early access stage. Set in the Cold War era, The Outlast Trials tells the story of the insane experiments conducted by the Murkoff Corporation on civilians to test advanced brainwashing and mind control methods. The crazy experiment referred to as the MKUltra, an illegal experiment carried out by the CIA during the Cold War. In the game, you'll take on the role of one of the experiment subjects, aiming to complete Murkoff's therapy and earn your right to be released. But, of course, it won't be easy. Most of the game's story comes from various evidence and documents found throughout the gameplay. Let's delve into the story from the beginning to the end. In the Cold War era, specifically in 1947, the CIA was established with the aim of conducting intelligence-gathering efforts. Outside the United States, they played a crucial role, as the intelligence successfully gathered from around the world proved effective in guiding the foreign and military policies of every president during the Cold War era. The common method they used to obtain foreign intelligence was espionage. On April 30, 1949, A. Bradley of Alamos, one of the employees working at the American multinational company named Murkoff Corporation, wrote a letter to the Murkoff Board of Directors, presenting an opportunity to achieve higher earnings. He explained that the current supply of CIAS chemicals was inadequate, and Murkoff could help provide them. By doing so, Murkoff Corporation would become part of the CIA and gain significant benefits in terms of income, power, and legal protection. Bradley wanted the board of directors to consider his idea carefully. Meanwhile, the United States and the Soviet Union were experiencing tension and competing against each other to prove their superiority. Eventually, due to this tension, the CIA became convinced that the Soviet Union, China, and North Korea were using mind control methods on American prisoners of war placed in Korea. The CIA wanted to employ similar methods, leading to the initiation of Project Bluebird in 1951. The project aimed to create new identities, induce amnesia, implant hypnotic access codes into subjects' minds, create multiple personalities, and fabricate false memories. Some of the methods involved placing brain electrodes on humans to control their behavior remotely, administering LSD doses to children, and using electroconvulsive therapy to erase memories. From Project Bluebird, the CIA further developed it into Project Artichoke, with the main goal of determining whether a person could be unintentionally made to commit murder. This project also studied the effects of hypnosis, morphine addiction, and other chemicals. On January 12, 1953, a CIA agent named Jameson Lawler visited a man named Hendrik Joly at Easterman to discuss the phenomenon of mind control. Lawler wanted to talk to Easterman because he was seen attending a speech by Allen Dulles, the CIA director, at Princeton University, where Allen spoke about mind control methods. Besides, Easterman had some ideas about brainwashing or mind control that he wrote in his book. During the discussion, Lawler wanted to hear Easterman's thoughts on what happened during the Korean War, specifically regarding American prisoners who refused to return home and decided to stay in communist countries like China. Upon hearing this, Easterman realized that Lawler was trying to make him believe in the brainwashing methods carried out by the Soviets, China, and North Korea on American prisoners. To further convince Easterman, Lawler brought up the death of his brother, Stanley Easterman. Stanley was an American lieutenant, believed to have taken his own life in Korea, but Easterman never believed that story. Due to this uncertainty, Lawler now offers Easterman a job where he has the opportunity to investigate the Korean People's Army KPA, a group of Korean soldiers being held in Hong Kong and subjected to brainwashing. By conducting this investigation, the CIA hopes to uncover the truth about what really happened during the Korean War and provide Easterman with answers to the question that has been bothering him, whether his brother really ended his life or not. Easterman accepts Lawler's offer and goes to Hong Kong the following month to search for evidence that his brother, Stanley, did not take his own life. He conducted interviews with four veterans, a Lutheran pastor, and all KPA prisoners, but failed to find strong evidence of brainwashing methods or anything related to psychology. Nevertheless, Easterman continues his investigation in Hong Kong for another year. Meanwhile, the CIA has developed Project Artichoke into a terrifying project, known as Project MKUltra, in April 1953. Led by a chemist named Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, under the command of CIA Director Alan Dulles. This project aims to identify drugs that can be used during interrogations to weaken someone's mind and force them to confess through brainwashing and psychological torture. The CIA is interested in manipulating foreign leaders. Using such techniques, ironically, these experiments are often conducted without the knowledge or consent of the subjects. In some cases, the CIA even funds researchers at an academy to conduct research, unaware that the results will be used for horrifying purposes. On January 20, 1954, Easterman was in Berlin to study Jung. The Jung referred to here is likely related to Jungian psychology or Jungian psychotherapy, an approach to analysis through communication, therapy aimed at balancing and uniting conscious and unconscious aspects of the mind. While studying Jung in Berlin, Easterman is reminded of World War II, which he sees as a war with cultural motives. He expresses his opinion on how National Socialism, which appeared cruel to America, actually taught America about infrastructure, propaganda, and leadership. For those who don't know, National Socialism is the doctrine or Nazi practice involving Hitler's supremacy as the Führer, state control over the economy, and national expansion. Evidence of the influence of National Socialism on America is seen in their actions with the bombing of Hiroshima, resulting in global death. 4 days later, Easterman is stationed by the CIA at an observation post in Sun Wan, Hong Kong, to study the Shi-Nao technique or brainwashing technique. He is tasked with investigating several veterans, both from the West and China, who have been affected by brainwashing. However, during his time in Hong Kong, Easterman becomes more interested in studying the ideological reshuffling acknowledged by Chinese communist parties. He is not interested in the brainwashing victims who, upon investigation, appear extremely lethargic and mentally damaged. Nonetheless, work is work, so he reluctantly carries out the investigation. At the same time, the secret CIA project, Project MKUltra, has been discovered by the Murkoff Corporation, and as a result, one of Murkoff's employees named Bradley of Alamos sends a threatening letter to CIA agent Jameson Lawler, offering a collaboration. Bradley brings up how Lawler had sought Murkoff's help in a research project before because he felt that the CIA's progress was too slow. Now, Bradley has heard that the CIA needs a researcher for studying drugs and their psychological effects, so he proposes a partnership where Murkoff Corporation will be fully involved in Project MKUltra. If they refuse, there will be serious implications in the public eye, as Project MKUltra is a secret project unknown to anyone. Reluctantly, the CIA accepts the collaboration offered by Murkoff Corporation, which is what Bradley wanted from the beginning. Murkoff will gain legal protection, power, and significant income. Returning to Easterman, on February 11th, he conducts an experiment on a veteran named Ramus that ends up mentally damaging him. He uses benzodrine on Ramus to make him more talkative, but instead, Ramus starts repeating himself and becomes contradictory. Ramus also experiences hallucinations of an unseen figure, referred to as the Doctor or Dr. Skinner, especially when he is interrogated about his abduction. Easterman decides to increase the dosage of benzodrine from 20 milligrams to 30 milligrams. This method briefly brings Ramus back to consciousness, but only for a moment, before his body enters permanent catatonic seizures. Cardio and galvanograph readings indicate that, although Ramus is in a catatonic state, his mind is still tormented by the doctor's treatment, explaining his pained and fearful facial expressions. Seeing Ramus' expression, Easterman is reminded of the Hanya mask from Japan. 2 months later, Easterman receives a letter from Olivier Baranchik, Murkoff Corporation's Assistant Director of Behavioral Medicine, a field that integrates behavioral, psychosocial, and biomedical concepts to prevent, diagnose, and treat patients with psychosomatic disorders. Olivier works at Mount Massive Hospital, owned by Murkoff Corporation. In his letter, Olivier explains that Lawler has provided him with information about Easterman, including his work in Hong Kong and his research findings. Olivier expresses interest in Easterman's research, which closely relates to dream therapy that Olivier is conducting in his laboratory in Los Alamos. He has sent a travel ticket to Easterman to visit Los Alamos and meet his research team. Olivier strongly advises Easterman to accept the invitation, since the cooperation offer touches on highly sensitive national security issues. If he refuses, his name will fade away. At the end of the letter, Olivier tries to convince Easterman that their researchers' work in Los Alamos is vital and inspiring, unlike the crude and awkward methods used by communist countries. Olivier's invitation letter leaves Easterman with no choice but to go to Los Alamos, Mexico, to meet Murkoff Corporation's researchers. There, he meets Dr. Rudolf Gustav Wernick, also known as Dr. Wernick. Dr. Wernick was one of the scientists who were once involved in the horrific experiments conducted by the Nazis during World War II. Specifically, he was assigned to create the morphogenic engine, a machine later used in the events of Outlast 1 to induce someone into a prolonged lucid dream, leading them to total insanity. Some of you may already be familiar with Dr. Wernick, as he appeared in Outlast 1 as the head scientist behind the Walrider project, working in a hidden research facility beneath Mount Massive Asylum. But how did Dr. Wernick, who was once a Nazi scientist, end up becoming a researcher for Murkoff Corporation, a multinational American company? After World War II ended, specifically between 1945 to 1949, the United States ran a secret intelligence program known as Operation Paperclip, where more than 1,600 Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians were brought to America to be employed. Dr. Wernick was one of them. After reviewing some of Dr. Wernick's research notes, Easterman starts to believe that Dr. Wernick is delusional due to feelings of guilt, stemming from his involvement in the horrific Nazi experiments. Dr. Wernick's research notes indicate that he believes in the existence of ghosts and the folklore of the boogeyman. But strangely, those research notes have been thoroughly examined by other researchers, who do not consider them delusional at all. The reality left Easterman feeling confused. The next day, he visits a bookstore and reads monster stories from a magazine called Weird Tales. One particular story captures his attention, especially its opening paragraph, which strangely resonates with the thoughts of the researchers in Los Alamos. The opening paragraph goes like this: "The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the pressing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. This opening paragraph seems to explain that there are still many things unknown to humanity, and perhaps it is destined to be that way. However, as knowledge develops, a terrible truth will be revealed, and that truth will force humanity to start anew. Strange, but perhaps this is what the researchers at Murkoff Corporation are currently working on. They are attempting to push the boundaries of knowledge through research on dream therapy. A few days later, Easterman is warned not to discuss politics with Dr. Wernick and one of Murkoff's researchers, as they can agree to overlook Wernick's past for the sake of a better future. At this point, Olivier holds high hopes for Easterman because he believes that Easterman's research on brainwashing and ideological revision may align with the experiments being conducted by Dr. Wernick, namely dream therapy. However, despite Easterman's efforts to understand what Dr. Wernick is trying to achieve with his experiments, he still hasn't found the answers. In the closing notes, Easterman admits to experiencing strange dreams since arriving at Los Alamos. This could possibly be a result of the prototype morphogenic engine being worked on by Dr. Wernick and the other researchers.